It is the most legendary artifact in history, an object of obsession for archaeologists, adventurers, and theologians for millennia. Said to be built under the direct command of God, plated in pure gold, and housing the very stone tablets etched by the finger of the Almighty, the Ark of the Covenant. For centuries, it was the centerpiece of Israelite worship, the tangible symbol of God's presence among His people. It parted rivers, crumbled city walls, and struck down enemies. It was the ultimate source of blessing and divine guidance. But the Ark was far more than just a sacred relic. It possessed a terrifying, lethal power. A power that could strike down a man dead for a single, well-intentioned touch. A power that unleashed plagues upon those who captured it. A power so dangerous that merely looking inside was a death sentence for entire towns. Then, sometime around the 6th century BC, during the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem, it vanished, wiped from the historical record. Its location remains the greatest unsolved mystery in archaeology. But the deeper mystery isn't just where the Ark went. It's why it was so unbelievably dangerous in the first place. What was the source of its devastating power? Was it merely symbolic? Or did this golden chest house a force, physical or spiritual, capable of unleashing literal destruction? Today, we embark on an investigation into the heart of the Ark's enigma. We'll examine its divine blueprint, analyze the chilling accounts of its power, explore the theories behind its lethal nature, and uncover the profound, timeless lesson it teaches about the terrifying beauty of holiness and the absolute necessity of reverence. This is the mystery of the Ark of the Covenant and its destructive power.
Our investigation begins with the Ark's origin story, meticulously detailed in the book of Exodus. This wasn't a human invention. It was, according to the text, a divine design revealed directly to Moses on Mount Sinai. God gives incredibly specific instructions. Exodus 25:10-22. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, a sacred, durable wood resistant to decay, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high, roughly 3.75 by 2.25 by 2.25 feet. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. This isn't just decoration, it's significant. Acacia wood is a poor conductor of electricity, while gold is one of the best. Already, the design hints at something involving energy or containment. The instructions continue. Cast 4 gold rings and attach them to its 4 feet, with poles of acacia wood overlaid with gold pass through the rings for carrying. Crucially, God commands, the poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. This suggests a permanent mechanism for transport that prevents direct human contact. The lid, known as the mercy seat or kaporet, was equally specific, pure gold with 2 cherubim, angelic figures, hammered out of gold at each end, facing each other, their wings overshadowing the lid. And it is here, between the cherubim on the mercy seat, that God declares the ark's primary purpose. There, above the cover, between the two cherubim that are over the Ark of the Covenant Law, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites. The contents. Inside this meticulously crafted chest were placed the holiest objects of the covenant. The 10 Commandments, 2 stone tablets inscribed by God himself, representing his divine law and covenant with Israel. A golden pot of manna, the miraculous bread that sustained Israel in the wilderness, symbolizing God's provision, mentioned in Hebrews 9:4. Aaron's rod that budded, Aaron's staff that miraculously sprouted, confirming his priestly authority, symbolizing God's chosen leadership, mentioned in Hebrews 9:4. Analysis of the blueprint. The ark wasn't just a container for relics. Its design, materials, and especially the mercy seat point to something far more profound. It was intended as a throne. The empty space between the cherubim symbolized the invisible throne of the unseen God. A meeting place, the designated location for divine human communication. A symbol of covenant, holding the foundational laws of the relationship between God and Israel. A point of presence, the focal point for God's tangible presence dwelling among his people. And this is the absolute key to understanding its power and its danger. The ark wasn't dangerous because of the wood, the gold, or even the tablets inside. It was dangerous because of who resided there.
To truly grasp the ark's lethal potential, we need to understand a crucial theological concept, the Shekhinah Glory. This Hebrew term refers to the visible, tangible manifestation of God's glorious presence dwelling on earth. Throughout the Old Testament, God's presence wasn't just an abstract idea. It was often accompanied by powerful physical phenomena: fire, smoke, brilliant light, consuming energy. Moses encountered God in a burning bush that wasn't consumed. God led Israel through the wilderness as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. When God descended onto Mount Sinai, the mountain quaked, smoked, and was engulfed in fire, and the people were warned not to even touch its base, lest they die. The Ark of the Covenant became the permanent focal point for this localized, intense manifestation of God's presence after the Sinai encounter. The space between the cherubim on the mercy seat was considered the Kodesh HaKodeshim, the Holy of Holies, not just symbolically, but in a very real sense, the place where heaven touched earth, where the infinite Creator localized his presence within the finite realm. Think of it like this. If God is the ultimate source of all energy and life in the universe, the Ark was a kind of cosmic interface, a point where that unimaginable power was concentrated and made accessible, yet remained incredibly volatile. It was like containing the heart of a star in a golden box. This explains the danger. God, in his absolute perfection and holiness, cannot coexist with sin or imperfection. His raw presence is inherently incompatible with the fallen state of humanity. Just as touching a high-voltage power line is instantly fatal, approaching the concentrated presence of absolute holiness without the proper protocols and spiritual state was lethally dangerous. The Ark's power wasn't magic, it was theology made manifest. Its destructive potential wasn't a curse, it was the natural consequence of the profane encountering the sacred, of imperfection coming into contact with perfection. The closer you got to the ark, the closer you got to the raw, unmediated presence of God, and the greater the danger if you were unprepared or unauthorized. This lethal radiance wasn't arbitrary. It was a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. God is holy, and approaching him requires absolute reverence and adherence to his specific commands. The ark was the ultimate object lesson in the fear of the Lord.
The Bible doesn't just state that the ark was powerful. It provides a chilling catalog of incidents demonstrating its capabilities, both creative and destructive. Let's examine the case files. Case file number 1, the parting of the Jordan, Joshua 3. Incident: as the Israelites prepared to enter the Promised Land, the Jordan River was at flood stage. God commanded the priests carrying the ark to step into the water. The moment their feet touched the river's edge, the waters flowing downstream were cut off, piling up in a heap miles upstream, allowing the entire nation to cross on dry ground. Analysts: this demonstrates the ark's power over natural forces, acting as a conduit for God's miraculous intervention. It establishes its role as the vanguard, literally clearing the path for God's people. Power used for deliverance. Case file number 2, the fall of Jericho, Joshua 6. Incident: the heavily fortified city of Jericho stood as the first obstacle. God's battle plan was bizarre. March around the city once a day for 6 days, led by priests carrying the ark. On the 7th day, march around 7 times, then blow trumpets and shout. When they obeyed, the impenetrable walls collapsed. Analysts: the ark is presented as a divine weapon of war. Its presence, combined with specific actions, marching, sound, triggered a localized destructive event. Some speculate about sonic resonance or focused energy, but the text attributes it directly to God's power channeled through the ark and the people's obedience. Power used for conquest. Case file number 3, Dagon's humiliation, 1 Samuel 5. Incident: after defeating Israel in battle, the Philistines captured the ark and placed it as a trophy in the temple of their chief deity Dagon. The next morning, Dagon's idol was found prostrate before the ark. They set it back up, but the following morning it had fallen again, this time with its head and hands severed, lying on the threshold. Analysts: this demonstrates the ark's power over false gods and idols. God's presence, even when captured, would not tolerate rivalry. It's a symbolic and literal smackdown, showing the impotence of pagan deities before the God of Israel. Power used for theological assertion. Case file number 4, the plagues on the Philistines, 1 Samuel 5:6. Incident: wherever the Philistines moved the ark within their territory, disaster followed. The people were struck with agonizing tumors. The Hebrew suggests something like boils or hemorrhoids, potentially linked to bubonic plague spread by rodents, and possibly an infestation of rats or mice. The plagues were so severe that the Philistine lords, terrified, decided they had to return the ark to Israel. Analysts: the ark acted as a source of judgment and pestilence against those who possessed it illegitimately and disrespectfully. It weaponized biology against its captors. This wasn't just bad luck, it was divine retribution radiating from the sacred object. Power used for judgment. Case file number 5, the tragedy at Beth Shemesh, 1 Samuel 6. Incident: when the ark arrived back in Israelite territory at Beth Shemesh, the people rejoiced. But then, some of the men, out of curiosity or disrespect, looked inside the ark. The consequences were swift and brutal. God struck down 70 or possibly 50,000 70, depending on manuscript translation, men. The town was plunged into terror and mourning. Analysts: this is a stark lesson in the danger of treating the holy with casual curiosity.
Looking inside the ark was a direct violation of its sacredness, an attempt to profane the mystery of God's presence. The immediate mass death underscores the lethal consequences of disrespecting divine boundaries. Power demanding reverence. Case file number 6. The death of Uzzah. 2 Samuel 6, 1 Chronicles 13. Incident. Years later, King David decided to bring the ark to his new capital, Jerusalem. Instead of having Levites carry it by its poles as commanded, they placed it on a new ox cart, copying the Philistines' method. When the oxen stumbled, a man named Uzzah, likely a Levite walking alongside, reached out his hand to steady the ark and prevent it from falling. The moment his hand touched the sacred chest, God's anger flared and Uzzah was struck dead on the spot. David was terrified and angry, halting the procession. Analysts. This is perhaps the most famous and debated incident. Uzzah's intention was good, to protect the ark. But his action, however well-meaning, was a direct violation of God's command, never touch the ark. It demonstrated a lapse into treating the ark as merely an object that could be saved by human effort, rather than the locus of God's awesome presence that demanded strict obedience. It was a fatal failure of reverence, prioritizing the physical object over the divine protocol, power demanding obedience over good intentions. These case files paint a consistent picture. The Ark of the Covenant was imbued with a power that could be wielded for deliverance and conquest, but was equally capable of unleashing devastation upon enemies and even upon God's own people if treated improperly. Its presence demanded absolute adherence to divine protocols.
The repeated tragedies surrounding the ark underscore a critical point. God provided extremely specific instructions for how this object was to be handled. These weren't arbitrary rules, they were essential safety protocols for interacting with the divine equivalent of a nuclear reactor core. The sacred cordon. Only one tribe, the Levites, was permitted to carry and care for the ark and the tabernacle furnishings. Within the Levites, only specific families, the Kohathites, had the duty of carrying the ark itself. No touching, the absolute primary rule. The ark was only ever to be lifted and carried by the poles inserted through its rings. Direct physical contact was forbidden under penalty of death, as Uzzah tragically learned. Veiling. Before the Kohathites could even enter to carry the ark after the tabernacle was disassembled for travel, Aaron and his sons, the priests, had to cover it completely with specific cloths and skins. The carriers themselves were not even to see the bare ark. Restricted access. The ark resided permanently in the Holy of Holies, first in the tabernacle, then in Solomon's temple. Only one person, the high priest, could enter this chamber, and only once a year on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, after elaborate purification rituals and shrouded in incense smoke. Why such strictness? The buffer zone. These intricate rules served a vital purpose. They created a buffer zone between divine holiness and human imperfection, acknowledging the otherness of God. The protocols constantly reinforce the idea that God is utterly holy, separate, and other. He cannot be approached casually or on human terms. Protecting humanity. The rules were not just to protect God's honor, but to protect human beings from the lethal consequences of encountering his raw presence improperly. Like safety procedures around radiation or high voltage, they were for survival. Teaching reverence. The constant need for care, specific personnel, and ritual purity instilled a deep sense of awe, reverence, and the fear of the Lord, not just fright, but profound respect for God's majesty and power. Uzzah's death wasn't an act of divine petulance, it was the inevitable consequence of breaching the established safety protocols. He crossed the sacred cordon, treated the ark like ordinary furniture, and paid the price for forgetting he was handling the localized throne of the universe's creator. The protocols weren't suggestions, they were laws of spiritual physics. While the theological explanation, the direct presence of God, is the Bible's own answer for the ark's power, human curiosity inevitably asks, how might that power have manifested physically? Could there be a scientific or pseudoscientific explanation underlying the supernatural accounts? Let's explore some of the theories, keeping in mind these are speculative attempts to bridge ancient text with modern concepts. Theory 1. The electrical capacitor. This popular theory, fueled by the ark's gold and wood construction, suggests it functioned as a massive electrical capacitor. The gold layers acted as conducting plates separated by the acacia wood dielectric. It could have accumulated a significant static charge from the dry desert air or atmospheric electricity. Touching it improperly could result in a lethal electrical discharge. Pros: fits the construction details, conductors and insulator, and explains the instant death from touching. Could also potentially explain phenomena like the light, Shekhinah, or even disruptive energy discharges, Jericho. Cons: requires a constant source of charge generation. Doesn't easily explain plagues, river parting, or effects on idols. Relies on interpreting ancient designs through a modern electrical lens. Theory 2. Radioactive material. The fringe theories sometimes propose the ark contained radioactive material, perhaps even extraterrestrial technology or remnants of a lost advanced civilization. The deadly effects, boils, death, are likened to radiation sickness. Pros: explains the lethal proximity effects and lingering contamination, plagues. Taps into ancient astronaut narratives popular with the target audience. Cons: no biblical or historical evidence supports this. Radiation sickness doesn't typically cause instant death upon touch. Handling radioactive material safely would require knowledge far beyond ancient capabilities. This theory moves firmly into pseudoscience. Theory 3. Sonic resonance or acoustic levitation. The idea, focusing on the fall of Jericho, some speculate the ark could generate or focus powerful sonic frequencies. The coordinated marching, trumpet blasts, and shouting, amplified or directed by the ark, might have created resonant frequencies capable of shattering stone walls. Some even link this to fringe ideas about acoustic levitation for moving large objects. Pros: offers a specific mechanism for the Jericho event. Connects to the use of sound, trumpets, shouts, in the biblical account. Cons: highly speculative physics. Doesn't explain the other lethal effects, touching, plagues, looking inside. Reduces the ark to a sonic weapon rather than a locus of divine presence. Theory 4. Quantum, dimensional, or psychic energy. The idea, more esoteric theories, suggest the ark was a gateway, a dimensional portal, or a device that amplified psychic or spiritual energy. Its effects were manifestations of energies from another realm or interactions with human consciousness. Pros: allows for a wide range of seemingly unconnected phenomena, appeals to New Age or metaphysical interpretations. Cons: entirely speculative, lacks any scientific or historical basis, moves away from the text's own theological framework into pure conjecture. While these theories are intriguing thought experiments, it's crucial to return to the text's own explanation. The Bible presents the ark's power not as a technological or natural phenomena independent of God, but as the direct, tangible result of God's choosing to dwell there. The physical manifestations, whether electrical discharges, biological effects, or geological impacts, are secondary consequences of that primary spiritual reality, the overwhelming holiness and power of the Creator interfacing with the created world. These scientific theories might describe potential ways that holy presence manifested, but they don't replace the source itself.
For nearly 4 centuries, The Ark resided in the Holy of Holies within Solomon's magnificent temple in Jerusalem. It remained the focal point of Israel's worship, albeit seen only by the high priest once a year. But then, history took a brutal turn. In 587 or 586 BC, the Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem, looted its treasures, and utterly destroyed Solomon's temple. And in the detailed lists of temple treasures carried off to Babylon found in the books of Kings, Chronicles, and Jeremiah, the Ark of the Covenant is conspicuously absent. It simply vanishes from the historical record. What happened to it? This remains one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries. Theories abound. Destroyed. Was it simply broken up and melted down for its gold by the Babylonians? Possible, but surprising it wasn't mentioned given its importance. Hidden. Did priests anticipating the invasion secretly remove and hide the Ark? Popular locations include hidden chambers beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, a politically explosive theory. Caves near the Dead Sea like Qumran, or elsewhere in Judah. Taken away. Was it smuggled out of the country entirely before or during the siege? The most famous legend, central to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, claims that Menelik I, son of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, took the Ark to Ethiopia centuries earlier, where it supposedly resides today in a church in Aksum, guarded by a single monk and never seen by outsiders. Other theories place it in Egypt, Zimbabwe, or even Ireland. Despite countless searches, expeditions, and claims, often sensationalized, no credible, verifiable evidence of the Ark's location has ever been found. Like the Holy Grail, it remains stubbornly lost, perhaps intentionally so. Jewish tradition holds that it was hidden by God and will only be revealed in the Messianic age. The enduring power. But even in its absence, the Ark's legacy endures. It remains a powerful symbol of God's presence, the promise that God desires to dwell among His people. The covenant, the binding relationship between God and humanity based on His law. Atonement, the mercy seat was where the high priest sprinkled blood once a year to atone for the nation's sins, foreshadowing a greater sacrifice. Judgment, a reminder of the consequences of disrespecting God's holiness. Intriguingly, the book of Revelation mentions the Ark one final time, not on earth, but in heaven. Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and within His temple was seen the Ark of His covenant, suggesting its ultimate reality transcends the physical object lost to history.
The Ark's true legacy is its meaning, not its location.
The Ark of the Covenant. A golden box, yes, but infinitely more. Our investigation leads us back to the core mystery. Its devastating power stemmed not from lost technology or alien artifacts, but from the unbearable, unmediated holiness of the God who chose to make His presence known there. It was a divine interface, a point of connection so potent that it required extreme measures to approach safely. The stories of its destructive power, the plagues, the instant deaths of Uzzah and the men of Beth Shemesh are not tales of an angry or capricious God. They are stark illustrations of a fundamental spiritual law. Absolute holiness consumes imperfection. The lesson for today. The Ark may be lost, but the principle it embodies remains eternally relevant. It teaches us about the nature of the sacred. It demands we ask ourselves, how do we approach God today? Do we treat His presence, His word, His commands with the reverence they deserve? Or do we, like Uzzah, reach out with casual, well-intentioned familiarity, forgetting the infinite gulf between Creator and creation? The Ark's story is the ultimate lesson in reverence and holiness. It reminds us that true power demands respect, and approaching the divine requires humility, obedience, and a profound awareness of our own inadequacy. We may no longer have a golden box, but the call to approach God with clean hands and a pure heart, trusting in the mediating sacrifice that makes such an approach possible, as Christian theology posits through Christ, echoes down through the centuries. The Ark's lethal radiance serves as a timeless warning. Tread carefully when you approach holy ground, for the presence of God is both the source of ultimate blessing and a consuming fire.